Hey guys, and welcome to my first video. So recently, I've been getting into Warhammer's Kill Team, right here. And I've had a look through most of the factions, plus all the supplement books, and I think I've found a faction that really speaks to me. Kroot. I've heard legends of Kroot being the worst faction. They always lose. They don't have the strength to win a tournament, the strength to win even a simple game. So my goal is to create a Kroot Kill Team. Every video I'm going to be doing it one step at a time, eventually leading to some battle reports. And hopefully I'm going to put them to the test and win a few games and prove to everyone that Kroot should not be underestimated. So my first video is going to be me creating and painting the leader, the commander if you will, of the group. And it is this model right here. He's from the Blackstone Fortress box. And I'm going to show you how I built him and painted him. So, without further ado, this is Laser Word, and I'm going to take you on a miniature journey. Ooh. So you need super glue, plastic glue, a crafting knife, and some clippers. And this is the model in its sprue form. Then I, very quickly, as you can see from the speeded up video, removed all of the pieces from the sprue. And then after removing everything from the sprue, I used my crafting knife and cut away any of the little sprue tabs and mold lines. And now with all of the mold lines and sprue tabs removed, I set about gluing everything with my plastic glue. So after gluing the model together, I set about drilling the gun barrel. I used a 1mm drill. Very carefully, I placed it where I wanted the gun hole to be and started drilling. After the gun hole was drilled, I used Abaddon Black as a base colour, making sure to get into all of the nooks and crannies. Next, I used Morfang Brown and painted all the major leathery bits and bits of cloth in a brown colour. And here is all of the brown painted on. Next I used Death Guard Green and painted all of the skin. Then I used some Wrathcar flesh. So anything sort of bony colour, I made sure to highlight, so such as the nails and the hair and the jaw. The next colour was Lead Belcher. So I painted the gun and any pieces of armour on the model. Because goodness me, the Kroot definitely need armour saves, so I have to make sure that any armour they're wearing is definitely painted on. My next colour was Mephiston Red. I used that for all of the bionic eyes and his normal eyes. So the main part of the model completed, I used the red, blue and yellow to create some contrasting colours in the hair braids. I then used some Wah flesh for the camo on the back of the cloak. There was no actual plan in terms of where I was going to be placing the green. I just sort of randomly did little squares and blotches on the cloak. I then used some Abaddon Black for the camo cloak as well, just to provide a contrasting colour to the brown and the green. So the Kroot needed a bit of a wash with the flesh shade wash. And whenever I use a wash, I just sort of slap it on all over, creating nice little dark pools all over. And then I worry about bringing out the colour later. After painting the skin with the shade, I then use Agrach's Earthshade to go on all the bits of metal and brown to sort of give it that earthy, dark texture that has been sort of going through the mud. So after the wash stage was complete, I then set about doing the base.
Using a cork from an old Prosecco bottle, I cut away little pieces to sort of create a rocky outcrop formation. I then superglued the pieces onto the base, making sure to leave space for the slotter so I can place the model in when it was ready. After the superglue had dried, I gave it a Morphang brown base coat. After the base coat was done, I then used some Agrellan Earth, which is one of my favourite paints. It's sort of this thick, gloopy texture which then dries and starts to crack. So it's really good for creating dry, cracked earth. And I sploshed it all over the base, not being too careful in terms of where the placement would be, because when it would dry, it would then crack out and create a really nice look. After that had all dried, as you can see, the cracks have already started to form. I then did a dry brush of Rathcar Flesh. I then used Agrach's Earthshade and gave it a nice wash to again bring out the sort of earthy brown textures. And the shade would go into the recesses and make the cracks really stand out. So this was the model after the wash stage. As you can see, it's already starting to look quite earthy, dark and realistic. And now I went to my dry brush stage. I used the Deathgar Green to sort of dry brush the skin back up to its sort of original colour, and still allowing for the recess shading to come through. I then used Ogren Camo to dry brush onto the skin in order to bring it to an even lighter colour. I then used the Ulthuan Grey as a dry brush again on the tendrils and the claws in order to bring out the colour. Then I did another dry brush of Morphang Brown on all of the bits of brown, so mainly the camo cloak and all of the bits of leather. And then I did another dry brush of Lead Belcher. So this would be on all the metal pieces in order to bring up the colour once again. And then after that very quick dry brush stage, the model was completed. So this is the model completed in all of its glory. I tried to keep the colour scheme fairly simple, so beginners can, watch this video and maybe learn some of these sort of basic techniques. I'm not the best painter in the world, and this is typically the sort of painting style that I tend to use, sort of just a basic base coat, then a wash, and then a dry brush. If you do like what you see here, feel free to give me a like. Also, leave me a comment with any painting tips that you might have. I'm always ready to learn. So guys, thank you for joining me on my first painting tutorial. Hopefully there'll be many more to come, and hopefully the Kroot army will continue. This is Lasers Words Miniature Adventure, signing off.